Hey Bobcat fans, Al Weston here for another Bobcat Coach's Corner for the first time in 2012. It's head coach Joe Samprone. Thanks for being with us, Coach.
Thank you for inviting me, Al.
All right, we're always love to have you here. We have no problem filling time when we got Joe on set. So I let you go a couple of weeks before we did our first one. How we doing so far?
The season's progressing as expected. We knew last year when we graduated 6 seniors on the men's team that this was going to be a rebuilding year. We recruited a couple of very talented freshmen, and we're happy with their progress. And on the men's side, it's always a little bit more difficult because high school men run 5K, college men run 8K. So, but our freshmen seem to have made the transition from the shorter to the longer race pretty well. This is the time of the season where people start to get a little bit tired. We've been, we've had a few races. We've been training hard. First half of the season, you really work hard to get in shape, get in good shape, and at this point we start maintaining. We try to just hold them where they are, so the workouts get a little bit easier, but we still have our conference race ahead of us, which is our goal. On the women's side, we only lost 1 to graduation. We have lost 1 to injuries and 1 to scheduling problems, but we picked up a bunch of freshmen on the women's team. I'm going to say this is the best women's team I think we've had since I've been with cross country at Georgia College. There's a bunch of very talented young ladies there, and the good news is we only have 1 that's going to be graduating, so they're all coming back for a couple more years, so I'm really excited.
Very nice. Well, talk about the men's side, a little bit more specifics, I guess. You do have 2 juniors back, and Phil Lasky and Tucker Forbes as well. Seems like Phil is at old form and perhaps a little bit better even, leading the team at each race so far this season. What does Phil bring to a race?
Well, Philip is, as a junior, he's the most experienced person on the team, he and Tucker. Philip was, number 2, 3, 4 runner last year. So not only has he been with us a while, but he's also been in our top 5 the whole time he's been here. So that experience is invaluable when you bring in a couple of new runners, as we did. And Tucker is having a solid season. He had a he was near the top 5. He was 5, 6, in that range. And again, we lost some very talented seniors last year, so the competition last year was a lot stronger on the men's side. But Tucker's providing the leadership we had hoped he would. So is Philip, and Philip is running great. Philip got injured in the middle of last season, so we didn't see the real Phil Lasky at the end of the season because of his injury. But he is really running well the first 3 races of our season so far, and we see no reason that won't continue.
And to continue with the guys, you have a lot of new faces, of course, by necessity, as you mentioned a couple of times. I know Paul McNeil's a guy that's been having some scoring races for you. What do you think has made the adjustment for these guys so easy? Is it their work ethic, or? Yes,
Paul is one of the hardest working kids I've seen, and he's very interested. He wants to get better. He wants to run well. And, when you have practice when it's still dark in the morning, it's hard for the kids to get out of bed. And when you get someone who really wants to go at it, that really helps a lot. So Paul and James, they're the other two. They're the two, and then Michael Valerio. That's been our top 5 pretty much this whole season. They're all real workers, and they're all working hard to get better. James and Paul, I believe, ran against each other for 4 years in high school. They know each other, and I believe they were connected back in middle school or something, went to the same school, may have been elementary school, but they've known each other a long time, and there's that rivalry there. And so far, Paul has had the better of it, but not by much. And so when we're talking a few seconds one way or the other, the guy who's in the back really wants to make it up and pass the other guy. So that, from a coaching standpoint, that's great. They're both going at it, and they both really want to do well. And for our guys, especially Paul and James and Michael Valerio, they had never run an 8K till this season. And we're coming up on regionals in about 4 weeks. We're going to have to run a 10K, which is twice the distance they normally ran for the past 4 years in high school. So just getting them ready for all that is a job, and hoping that they are ready by the end of the season. The beginning of the season is preseason in cross country. Conference race is real important. That's an 8K for the guys, and then they're going to hit a 10K at the NCAA regional.
And it's always tough to juggle, with injuries, and
Yes.
you want to stretch their length of race, but not stretch their bodies at the
We've
same
been
time.
healthy, and I hate to even say that at this point in the season because we're one flu or one injury away from a disaster because our season is so short, it's almost over. And if you go down for a week or so and it takes you 2 weeks to get back, the season's over. So, but Paul and James and Michael, it's unusual to depend on 3 people who've never run an AK before as 3 of your top 5, but that's what we're doing this year. It's nice to have a freshman and you can bring them along in 2 years you need them, but we needed them right away because of, and I was as happy last year to have all those seniors. It was great, but all season long I knew they're all leaving at the same time. So our rebuilding year is this year on the men's side, and I'm very happy with the progress that the runners have made. They're really working hard. They're really trying to accomplish things, and that's, from my perspective, a great thing.
All right. Well, switching gears to the women's side, we'll take a look at that. You mentioned again a lot of new faces there, not by necessity as it is on the men's side, but kind of a pleasant surprise over
Yes.
on that side. Instead, you had your first all-region runner in school history coming back in Allison Loans.
Allison Loans, yeah.
And in the first couple of races, she got beat by some freshmen.
Yes, she got beat by Taylor Eck, and it's, Allison's one of those runners that you just sort of stand back and watch. She doesn't like to get beat, and Taylor beat her the first race, and Allison I knew was coming after her. Taylor beat her the second race, and I knew Allison got closer. And in the third race, Allison beat Taylor. And I'll say about our women's team, like I used to say about our men's team last year when I had all those seniors, we have 2 or 3 number 1 runners on this team. We don't have a number 1 runner. Any week it can flip-flop. Victoria Dobson, who's our only senior this year on our women's team, I think she can beat both Taylor and Allison because Vic is running very, very well. And she really wants to beat them. And that desire, too, is very important. And she has the ability to beat them, and she has the desire. So I'm really looking forward to, as we get closer to conference, to see Victoria Dobson move up into that top pack of with Allison and Taylor. But beyond Vic, Allison, and Taylor, Whitney Sweet's running very well. Megan's running very well. Megan rolled her ankle at the last race, and that slowed her down a bit.
That's Megan Wetterhall, correct?
Wetterhall,
Okay.
yes. And we're going to, Megan's probably going to sit out the Augusta meet coming up on Friday. That's a rather rough course. And having rolled an ankle a couple of weeks ago and re-rolled it, we decided that she's probably better off just sitting that one out so that she'll be in top shape for our conference race. But we're deeper than that on the women's side. The men's side, we have 7 guys right now that are running. So we're not, but on the women's side, we've got, I believe, 12. And number 5, 6, 7, 8, they're pretty close. So we've got a deep bench on the women's side. And as I said earlier, Vic is the only one graduating, so that whole bench is coming back. And that's really, that'll allow us to really go out and look for some help on the men's side to build that team up a little bit, because I would go with the next 3 years with what we already have on the women's side. They're just a great bunch of kids and very talented runners.
Tell me about the conference championships coming up in a couple of weeks out in Montevallo. You guys haven't run out there before. Do you have any idea of the course or anything?
Well, we haven't run out there, and for those folks not too familiar with cross country, we normally run a 5K for the women, 8K for the men. But at the NCAA, there is a 6K for the women, a 10K for the men. The Peach Belt Conference, which is our conference, decided 2 years ago, they didn't want the guys to run a whole bunch of 10Ks. So they said, but the women can run more 6Ks. So our conference meet is now the same as the NCAA regional. It's a 6K. So the first couple of meets we ran this year were 5Ks. Last week in Minnesota, that was a 6K for the women. So all of our freshmen, our new runners, saw their first 6K last week. And the Augusta race this week is also 6K, and then Montevallo is 6K. Nice. So our women's team is going to see a few 6Ks, a couple before they get to conference. Stephen Carey, my graduate assistant, went out this past week, and he ran and charted the course. We know what the course in Montevallo looks like. Gotcha. He went out there and took a look at it, and we're working on things that'll help the kids around the course. We'll see the course, and they'll jog it the day before the meet, which we usually do when we're going to a new course. We'll go out and see it the day before. But we know the hills, we know the terrain from Stephen going out there and mapping it, and we're training for it. That's our big race. I mean, I'd like to say the NCAA Regional's our big race, but the competition within the Peach Belt is pretty intense. So the conference meet is our biggie. And then from there, we'll go to the regionals, and I believe this year they changed the rule. The top 3 teams at region get to go to nationals, which is every school's goal.
Sure.
But the Peach Belt Conference is a big one for us. On the men's side, again, Stephen charted that course too. He ran both the 6K and the 8K. The men continue to run an 8K until they get to NCAA regionals. So there's not going to be anything different there for the guys. But I think we're going to be prepared. Again, we're all healthy right now. And this is 4 weeks before conference. We're all healthy, and we're going to try to keep it that way.
Well, a big race this weekend up in Augusta, the ASU Jaguar Invitational. Catch the results at gcbobcats.com if you can't make the trip up there. And then, of course, the Peach Belt Conference race coming in a couple of weeks. And stay tuned, more details to follow on that. For Joe Samprone, Al Weston for the Bobcat Coach's Corner.